I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On this show, should voting be mandatory in Canada?
No, I don't think we should force people to vote.
I certainly do.
The Australians do it, and it seems to have gone well for them.
We have the right to vote, and I think that's perfect. That's enough.
But first, many sectors of Canada's economy have, of course, taken a hit since this pandemic began, be it small businesses having to close their doors or larger industries like travel and tourism, resulting in many people losing their jobs. We took our cameras out to the streets and we asked Canadians what advice they may have to bring Canada back from the financial brink brought on by COVID. Our question:
what steps should be taken to restore Canada's economy?
Open everything back up. Let us go back to work and let us travel. I think that would probably, I think everything would start to move if things were open back up.
Well, Prime Minister did a good job while helping the citizens of the country. But I think having a balance between opening the economy will be really good, and especially helping the local businesses, because that's where the economy will boost, because eventually they are the ones who are doing farming and stuff like that. So I believe balance between big companies and the small businesses, it should be maintained.
The politicians and the government in general will have to make very astute decisions. There will be areas that are often put aside immediately because they're not deemed important. Culture, that kind of activity. Support to universities. Government's going to have a hard time because the economy is suffering, and billions of dollars have been spent on this pandemic, and it's not over.
Shop local, like always.
Yeah,
is always a great start.
I think we need some more businesses to start reopening, to start circulating some more money through the economy for sure. But yeah, supporting local is probably the biggest thing right now.
Yeah, obviously I've heard from people around me, it's been really hard with the stores closing and stuff. And so I think trying to keep the most things open, but while keeping everyone safe, is important for the economy. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that what they're doing right now is the best they can do, because people still need to get their necessities and stuff, and people for their sanity need to get out, but still wearing masks and obviously having bubbles.
I think as long as people are trying to support local as much as they can, and in that kind of way, that we can kind of be putting our own money back into the Canadian economy.
I think the idea of giving people money was we would have been a lot worse off in the first depression in 1930. We didn't put anything into the economy. But I think that people will probably be pretty keen on doing some traveling and buying and spending. So I don't know how much they'll have to stimulate the economy to do that. But that's what I think. It might just happen naturally.
I think we should be opening up a lot sooner than we are. I think the progress in opening right now, considering the amount of vaccinations to date, is too slow. So I think we should really rapidly improve that to improve the economics of our country right now.
I think he's going the right way. I think that get the economy going, but before we go to 100% reopen, we got to make sure we're ready for 100%. So I think open the economy up to 100% and the economy will take care of itself.
I think we're doing good as we are. We're keeping things sensible, locking up where we need to be. They've been doing the CERB and stuff like that to help people out. Open it up as we're able to do it. It's all about science, not about the economy. You can't have an economy if we're not healthy. That's simple.
The most important thing is to get the small businesses open fully and to enact laws to prevent future shutdowns like this. I don't think this should be allowed in a free democratic country where a bureaucrat can shut down a small business.
Thank God farmers aren't affected and things like that. We're not experiencing food shortages, but very slowly, very gradually, there might be changes to our taxes, and it might be necessary, right? And I'm okay with that.
Oh man, I think the sooner we open, the better. That's my opinion. I mean, I know Manitoba is suffering, but I just hope we can get by it. Everybody gets their vaccines, and we can just open up the economy.
Yeah, and I mean safely open, right? We want to open, but we need to do that safely. So, want to support that.
Initially, a little federal assistance, especially to the hospitality and tourism trades, and get people back at work. And then once people are fully vaccinated, or basically, it might be like the Roaring 20s again.
A slower reopen. I'm hearing a lot of scary things about this new variant. So just a slow and steady reopen, I think, is the right move.
Just following the science rather than just kind of going based on money alone, you know. I think that's leads you back quicker than just deciding to open because, you know, I get businesses are hurting, but I think it's a faster opening if we listen to our guidelines and our scientists.
I guess make sure that all businesses that suffered throughout the pandemic are still going to be around. Like a lot of the part of the culture of different cities, not just Toronto, but here in Winnipeg, Saskatoon, BC, a lot of bars have shut down. So it's important. Bars and cafes have shut down, restaurants, and those are the heart and soul of the city. So it's important I'd like to see the government put a lot of, I guess, funding back into those to make sure they survive.
So I think that the government should kind of focus on resilience, because we've gone through a time of, seeing where the issues are. So you kind of put your money into sort of greening the economy and adding resilience, whether that's in the energy sector or it's in, how your homes are built. And that sort of will be kind of in the infrastructure idea. And then that'll create the jobs and grow from there.
It goes without saying that Canada and pretty much the entire world was not fully prepared when this pandemic hit. There was a learning curve right from the beginning, which we continue to draw wisdom from today as COVID-19 continues to have a profound effect on lives around the world. As vaccinations continue to roll out across the country, we hope that it will at least bring life back to somewhat of a normal capacity. But if this happens again, what lessons can we draw from it? Our question.
How could Canada be better prepared for the next pandemic?
Having action plans in place, like for instance, my work, we had an action plan in place to send everybody home. We'd been working on it for over a year before the pandemic actually happened. So once it started up, we were ready to go. Like we had everybody sent home with laptops right away, and it was planning long before it actually happened.
Have our own vaccine production resources, better supply of emergency equipment like ventilators, and especially in Manitoba have proper trained staff in place, especially ICU nurses and respiratory technologists.
I think listening to what the doctors are saying and actually listening to healthcare workers that have a lot to say, and they need to be taken seriously and respected.
We should have contracts for our nurses. We should not be closing hospitals, and we should be talking about social determinants of health. So we know that viruses and bacteria infect people who are less better off. So we should be finding people housing, we should be finding people mental health care support and healthcare support, and we should be rewarding the nurses that work in our hospitals.
Clearly we did not have enough PPE, so securing proper PPE.
Well, thanks to media like this and social media, people will be more prepared. Like I'm very surprised. I only heard inklings of this Spanish flu that happened exactly 100 years ago, right? So these lessons, we need a more sense of history of these types of events. So lessons learned, wearing masks works, right? Follow the instructions, do what you can do. Hopefully this doesn't happen again. But again, thanks to media like this and social media, people should have these things more in mind, that we don't lose these lessons.
Education. I think people need to be self-reliant, and they need to be their own doctor, and to be prepared for any kind of unforeseen health event. It's you as an individual that has to protect yourself.
Well, one of the things is let's get our scientists and researchers back on. Let's reopen up all those things that have been closed up over the last 30 years, 20 years.
Well, basically learn from the mistakes that we've made so far in the pandemic, look ahead, start planning for the future, and basically come up with a contingency plan to basically combat what we can expect in the future going forward.
Well, I like the idea of making our own vaccines. That's a great idea. And I think that we're going to have to, the whole world's going to have to be more concerned about this, because it's going to happen again, I think, at some point in time. So I think we should be prepared. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that thinking also, yes. We should have had our own manufacturing here.
Well, I think we weren't at all, we didn't kind of normally expected a pandemic. So now that we've gone through one, we kind of know what to expect from the next one. We kind of have these measures in place. We have scientists who know what to work on. And so I think we already are slightly more prepared than we were like a year ago.
Shutting down earlier would be a great choice. I know it's hard and it's easier said than done, but proper shutdowns would have helped a lot.
Yeah, or even just the first shutdown should have been a little bit longer to thoroughly kind of undermine the virus right away. And then once everything opened back, we could have done what maybe some other countries have done, and we might have actually been open at this point.
Yeah.
We have really good scientists in this country, and yet we have relied entirely on outside influences to produce the vaccines we needed. I think one step would be to get something in place that will allow us to do the research rapidly and to produce rapidly vaccines that work.
Obviously just taking the right precautions, right? We had a lot of people that, were still partying and stuff. I'm 21 myself, so I know a lot of college people that were still out and about doing their thing regardless of any restrictions we had. So I think responsibility plays a lot of a role too. So
it's tough when there's regional outbreaks or the situation changes across the country, but having so many of the decisions be made at the provincial level, to me it's like it was stressful, it was worrying, to see some provinces taking stronger action and having fewer cases, deaths, all that kind of thing. I think a national approach could really benefit Canada in the future and would have benefited us this time around.
I think just have a better kind of contingency plan for vaccines. More on hand, easier to get a hold of, just a better kind of contractor portal to have that type of materials on hand a little bit more freely. I think that'd be a big help. As well as organizing vaccine, kind of administering sites a little bit better than they have now, right? It's a bit of chaos there.
Well, I work at a homeless shelter, so we having the rapid testing and things like that have been very helpful because we work in so close to so many people. So it's been helpful the last few months, but it would have been helpful at the beginning of everything, so we didn't have to worry for a year and a half about it.
That's a very good question. For me as a teacher, I think one of the best things that we have learned from this is that kids need the support. They need their education. We have to keep that going. And I think now we know more efficiently how we can do that. As an online educator myself, I was able to interact, create relationships, and do all those kinds of good things. So for me, that's most important, is how to just keep our jobs going.
Which of the following is Canada's top fruit export? Blueberries, strawberries, or apples?
It's blueberries. Blueberry? I'm going with you. I'm trusting you. Blueberries.
Apples. I'll say apples.
I was going to say the same. Apples.
Strawberries.
Strawberries.
Apples.
Apples.
Strawberries.
I'm going to say blueberries.
The answer? Blueberries.
Nice.
According to the Federal Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, blueberries are Canada's top fruit export. Canadian fruit exports in 2019 totaled $843 million. Blueberries accounted for $270.7 million of that, followed by apples, grapes, cranberries, and strawberries. While Canadian fruit exports span the globe, The U.S. remains Canada's top export destination, accounting for 64.8% of all fruit exports by value.
At a recent event organized by the Delta Chamber of Commerce in British Columbia, federal Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole said that he is studying Australia's mandatory voting law to see whether or not Canada should follow suit. Australia is one of the few countries around the world that has mandatory voting, and those who don't comply will face a fine. With voter turnout in this country at roughly 66% during the last federal election, mandatory voting could bring those numbers up. But is forcing people to vote an infringement on their rights and freedoms? Our question:
should voting be mandatory in Canada?
Boy, that's a hard one, because there's a freedom of choice. And I think we encourage people to vote because they believe in something that they want to see change or make better. And forcing people to vote will not necessarily bring any better results to what we have. I think the whole constitutional approach to voting, which was supposed to be dealt with by this government, might have helped start changing these things.
It's nice that people do vote, and they should vote, but I don't think if we force it on people, they might not get the vote that they might not be informed, or they might not know what's going on. Rather not force them on people.
Give them access to voting. I think we do that very well in Canada compared to another country down south in the States. Just give us access, different opportunities, different ways of voting, and keep us informed, and so we can make the right choice.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see it imposed either. It's a civil responsibility, but as Pascal mentioned, if we start imposing, then people will just check off anything and not necessarily vote after reflection.
I don't agree with it. Some do. I think Australia it is, but for me, no. I think that if you just don't feel like participating in any particular election, I don't think you should have to. I've always voted, but not everybody feels that they can make an opinion or make a decision at that time, but I don't think it should be mandatory, no.
Well, to me, democracy means freedom of choice, and I am the same as my husband. I do vote, but I respect other people's right not to.
I don't know about mandatory, but I think there should be ways that the government should be encouraging people a little bit more to vote.
I believe that voting should be mandatory for people in Canada because it's such an important part of our lives that it governs exactly what we do in life depending on who we choose. So I think it's extremely important that we get out there and vote. So I do believe it should be mandatory, yes.
Well, I'm not going to go as far as to say that it should be mandatory, but I do feel like there's a lot of people out there that will go around stating their political opinion when they didn't actually vote. So it's, they'll be mad at a conservative government or a liberal government, and then it's like, okay, well, who did you vote for? Oh, well, I didn't vote. Well, you can't really have an opinion on the problem if you didn't, do your part to stop what you thought wasn't correct, right? So I don't think it should be mandatory, but I do feel like that people need to take personal responsibility about their opinions in regards to politics. So.
I've gone back and forth on this. Honestly, I would probably say yes. But I also think that it's important that we recognize what the barriers are to voting and why there may be people that are not voting, and address those issues. So, mandatory voting with penalties and stuff like that, I don't support that. I think there are cases where people don't vote for good reasons. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd take back my answer. I think the barriers to more universal or higher rates of voting should be addressed first.
I would say no, as a basic freedom. It's a basic freedom of expression. Shouldn't be forced to do anything.
Voting should be mandatory in Canada. I believe everyone has a right to vote because that's important for the future and of what decides on our country.
I am not a citizen. I'm a permanent resident, so I'm not able to vote myself. but I think that it should be a choice for those who choose to. But I also think that if you choose not to, then you live with the consequences of that choice.
No, because I think if nobody likes the candidates, they shouldn't be forced to choose a candidate they don't like.
Oh, good point. I just think people need to take responsibility and vote, but whether it should be mandatory, I'm not sure.
I kind of think so, or at least change the system to a point where if there's such a low turnout that maybe we change things around, like look at our political parties, because if you're hitting a less than 40% threshold of people actually wanting to vote, there's something wrong there.
So I've always thought that it should. The Australians do it, and it seemed to have gone well for them. I think that it means that all the edges of the voting public vote, therefore the parties need to speak to those people, which typically doesn't happen. It's just about getting out your base, and I think if it was more evenly distributed, the parties would be more evenly distributed.
I don't think voting should be mandatory in Canada because I don't like the idea of having to police that.
I guess not, simply because mandatory implies that there's then like a punishment for not voting, which feels weird. I think just you have to lower the barrier of entry to make voting accessible to everybody.
I certainly do. Why? Well, if you're going to reap the benefits of this country, then you need to participate. And part of participating is you cast the vote, even if you go in and spoil it. As long as you go in there and cast the vote.
I believe Canada's a democratic country, right? So we should all have like the yes or no. So it shouldn't be mandatory. It should be if you want to, you vote. Yeah.
People, died for our freedom to get like that. And like in places like Australia, I believe they still have mandatory voting. It should be something you just automatically do if you care about your country. I don't care what political party you're at or if you even believe in politics. Just get out and vote. It takes you 2 minutes. If they do it online, even faster.
Voting, 100%. If you're not voting, you shouldn't complain about anything at all.
Well, not really, because then people would vote for whatever and they didn't care, they didn't know about it. So, no, it should be well informed.
Finally, since this pandemic was declared in March of 2020, many of us will agree it's been a period in time that most of us won't soon forget. Almost immediately, we had to learn how to do things differently, and perhaps picking up a new diversion or pastime along the way. So, we took this question to Canadians.
What new skill or hobby have you acquired during COVID-19?
New hobby. I've always been into working out, but I've gotten a lot better at working out at home. Getting into a, at-home fitness routine.
Staying 6 feet away from people.
I don't know, actually. I guess more skateboarding with my son and a lot more hiking in my own province and just really looking at our own province as a really awesome place to be and finding these hidden gems that I otherwise didn't focus on. I think it would have to be becoming like a huge Zoom expert. I'm into technology in a big way, and I've been able to use the skills that I've learned with Zoom to do all sorts of training in adaptive technology for the blind all over the world.
Well, I've resumed my painting. I've been painting gift cards for my relatives instead of going to the store and purchasing one. I've been painting them cards.
Do a lot more cooking, working around the world, done Mediterranean, Thai. Basically getting a lot of recipe ideas off YouTube and finding some good cooks and following their blogs.
Mom life in general, like she was born last August, so like everything to do with being a new mom, which has been quite a bit of a struggle just in the pandemic, having to kind of do it by yourself, like with my partner, obviously.
Investing in cryptocurrency. Yeah.
And how's that been going?
Very well. Very, very well.
So what I found I did is I discovered podcasting. So in my spare time, I've been on long walks, because that's kind of the fitness for COVID, and I would load up a podcast, and it was fantastic. So I've discovered all kinds of new people and ideas and things, and that's what I ended up doing with a lot of my spare time.
Well, I revisited knitting, and I was able to knit half a scarf in a day.
And before, how long would that take you?
About 2 days, probably.
How about you? My painting skills is getting better and better. It only takes me like 2 hours to paint a whole painting right now.
Cooking for myself for one again. Very simply, I've actually cooked roast beef recently. Tried that. I'm not that successful at it, but it gets the meal done. Learning how to freeze things and put it away for later, kind of thing. Stuff my grandmother taught me years ago, but you forget over the years.
I wouldn't say I've picked up any hobby. I would say I've tend to enjoy my own company. So like I do things alone. I like to enjoy doing things alone. Yep.
None really. I've gone deeper in existing ones. Meditation, reading, and doing just personal research.
I found that I started gardening a little bit. Nothing serious, but I have some animosity toward goutweed now that I didn't have prior. So, yeah, I've been doing that.
I bake bread, never did before, but I tried that. So that's a new skill.
I don't know if I've acquired a new one, but I kind of probably deepened my already existing hobbies. So I've been doing yoga a lot more. I've been working out more, especially since the summer. I've been cycling more, spending more time outside in nature.
Well, my studying skills have definitely improved because
Yeah.
of online.
I've kind of become procrastinated a little bit less, focused more on school, spend more time at home. I mean, not really a hobby, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. This is our new hobby. It's biking. And we're enjoying it a lot. We're doing a lot of biking. And that's one thing that we haven't been restricted on. So I like that a lot.
Actually, I learned that I like reading and writing. So actually, I started making music over the pandemic.
Learning to teach from home has been interesting. So I'm a school teacher, so it's been, it was interesting. I'm glad I don't have to do it all the time, to be perfectly honest with you. So, but I don't know, that might be it. Other than that, I kept fairly busy and normal-ish, as close as I could. So yeah.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.